I always thought our marriage was a fortress, unyielding and eternal. Clara and I had built a life over 15 years, woven with shared laughter, quiet evenings, and the chaos of raising our two kids, Emma and Liam. Our home in suburban Maplewood was a canvas of memories. Photos on the fridge, scuff marks from Liam's toy trucks, Clara's herb garden thriving in the backyard. I'm a structural engineer, grounded in logic, designing bridges that withstand time. Clara, a graphic designer, brought color to my grayscale world. Her smile could unravel my worst days. But lately, her warmth felt distant, like a signal fading. She'd linger over her phone, her laughter reserved for texts she didn't share. I chalked it up to stress. Her firm had landed a big client, and she was swamped. Yet, the air between us grew heavy, a tension I couldn't name. One evening, I found her sketching at the kitchen table, her eyes darting to her phone every few minutes. "Everything okay?" I asked, pouring coffee. She nodded, too quickly, tucking her phone away. That night, I lay awake, her breathing soft beside me, wondering when we'd stopped sharing the small things. The next day, I noticed her perfume lingered on her scarf, sharper than usual, as if she'd reapplied it before coming home. A seed of doubt planted itself, but I brushed it off. Doubt was a crack in a foundation. I'd spent my career fixing those. Still, I started paying attention. Her late nights, her guarded phone, the way she'd flinch when I touched her unexpectedly. I told myself it was nothing, but the crack was spreading. By spring, the distance between us was palpable. Clara's late nights at the office became routine, her excuses polished but vague. Client meetings, she'd say, or last-minute revisions. I nodded, swallowing my unease. I was busy too, overseeing a bridge project that demanded precision. But one Saturday, while Clara was supposedly at a work brunch, I found her laptop open on the counter. She'd always been private about her devices, but curiosity gnawed at me. I hesitated, then clicked into her email. Most were work-related, but one thread caught my eye, messages from Evan, a name I didn't know. The subject lines were innocuous, project update, quick check-in. But the tone was too familiar, laced with warmth that didn't belong in professional correspondence. "Can't wait to see you again," one read. My stomach churned. I scrolled further, finding a photo attachment. A selfie of Clara and a man, mid-30s with sharp cheekbones and a smug grin. They were at a cafe, her hand resting on his arm. My pulse hammered. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking. When Clara came home, smelling of that sharp perfume, I asked about her day. "Just work stuff," she said, avoiding my eyes. I didn't confront her, not yet. I needed proof, not just a photo and a gut punch. That night, I installed a tracking app on her phone while she showered, hating myself for it. But the crack was a chasm now, and I needed to know how deep it ran. The tracking app was a silent traitor, feeding me Clara's movements. She wasn't at the office when she claimed to be. Instead, her phone pinged at a downtown loft, a trendy area far from her firm. I cross-referenced the address online. It belonged to Evan Caldwell, a freelance photographer whose portfolio screamed pretentious. His Instagram was a gallery of self-assured smirks and artsy shots, some featuring Clara's designs. My chest tightened. I started cross-checking her late nights with Evan's posts. Too many aligned, dinners at chic restaurants, gallery openings, moments she'd never mentioned. One night, I followed her. She'd said she was meeting a client, but her car led to that loft. I parked a block away, watching her slip inside, her laugh echoing as Evan greeted her at the door. They didn't kiss, but their ease spoke volumes. I sat there for hours, the engine off, my breath fogging the windshield. When she left at midnight, her hair was mussed, her smile unguarded. I drove home in silence, my knuckles white. The next day, I hired a private investigator, a grizzled man named Ray who smelled of stale coffee. "Give me a week," he said. Ray delivered in 5 days. Photos of Clara and Evan at a hotel, their hands entwined, her wedding ring glinting. There were audio clips too. Her voice, soft and intimate, calling him babe. I listened once, then deleted them. The betrayal was a weight I couldn't unshoulder, but I didn't confront her. Not yet. Revenge was forming a cold, precise plan, like designing a bridge to collapse under its own weight. Living with Clara became an exercise in restraint. I cooked breakfast, kissed her goodbye, played with the kids, all while carrying the truth like a blade. She noticed my quietness, asking once, "You okay, Mark?" I nodded, forcing a smile. "Just work." She didn't press, probably relieved. I studied her, memorizing the lies in her gestures, the way she'd tuck her hair when nervous, the quick glance at her phone. Meanwhile, I dug deeper into Evan. He was a minor celebrity in the art world, with a reputation for charm and a trail of broken relationships. His loft was leased, his income erratic. Clara's firm had hired him for a campaign, which explained their connection, but not her betrayal. I started gathering leverage. Evan had a pending lawsuit from a former client, unpaid taxes, and a history of skirting ethics. I contacted the client anonymously, feeding them details to escalate their case. I tipped off a tax auditor using a burner email. Small moves, but deliberate, like weakening a structure's supports. At home, I played the devoted husband, planning a surprise anniversary dinner. Clara seemed touched, but her eyes were elsewhere. The dinner was at a restaurant she loved, candlelit and intimate. She wore the dress I'd bought her years ago, and for a moment, I saw the woman I'd married. But then her phone buzzed, and she excused herself to check on work. I knew it was Evan. That night, I finalized my plan. Revenge wouldn't be loud or messy. It would be surgical, dismantling their world piece by piece, starting with Evan's fragile empire. My plan began with Evan's vulnerabilities. His lawsuit was gaining traction, thanks to my anonymous tips, but I needed more. I hacked into his cloud storage. His passwords were predictable, a variation of his birthday. Inside, I found a goldmine. Unedited photos from a shoot that violated client contracts, emails hinting at creative theft, and a folder of compromising images, some involving Clara. My stomach twisted, but I copied everything. I sent the evidence to his clients and the local art board, using an encrypted server to cover my tracks. Within days, Evan's reputation began to fray. Posts on X called him out. His bookings dried up. Clara noticed his stress but didn't connect it to me. She was distracted, her guilt making her kinder at home, as if overcompensating. I used that. I suggested a weekend getaway, just us, knowing she'd decline. "Work's crazy," she said, and I nodded, planting a seed of normalcy. Meanwhile, I targeted her firm. I leaked emails showing her involvement with Evan's unethical projects, framing it as her initiative. Her boss called her in for a meeting. She came home pale, saying it was a misunderstanding. I feigned concern, but inside, I was tightening the noose. Evan's loft lease was next. I tipped off his landlord about his late payments, ensuring an eviction notice. Each move was a calculated strike, invisible but devastating. Clara's world was unraveling, and she didn't even know I was the architect. But I wasn't done. The final act would be personal, a betrayal mirrored back, leaving them both to face the wreckage of their choices. The fallout from my initial strikes was subtle but relentless. Evan's world was crumbling. His clients dropped him. His social media buzz turned toxic, and the eviction notice hit like a sledgehammer. I watched Clara absorb his stress, her face tightening when she thought I wasn't looking. She'd slip away to call him, her voice low, promising to figure it out. I pretended not to notice, keeping our home a facade of normalcy. I'd help Emma with her science project, joke with Liam about his soccer game, and ask Clara about her day. Each question a test she failed. Her firm was circling her now, the leaked emails painting her as reckless. She was on probation, her confidence fraying. I fed her doubt with small gestures, leaving articles about workplace scandals on the counter, asking innocently if her job was secure. "It's fine," she'd snap, but her eyes betrayed her. I escalated my plan. Using a fake profile, I contacted Evan's ex-girlfriend, a fiery artist named Lila who'd been burned by his charm. I shared just enough of his recent missteps to ignite her anger. Lila took to X, posting a scathing thread about Evan's manipulations, tagging Clara's firm. The post went viral, and Clara's boss called her in again. She came home late, her makeup smudged, claiming exhaustion. I offered her wine, my voice soft, but inside, I was a furnace. I hacked Clara's email next, finding her desperate messages to Evan about starting over somewhere new. The audacity of it, planning a future while I raised our kids, hardened my resolve. I forwarded those emails to her firm's HR, anonymously, framing them as a conflict of interest. The noose was tightening, and I was ready to pull harder. Clara's probation at work turned into a formal investigation. Her firm's reputation was at stake, and the emails I'd leaked made her a liability. She spent hours on the phone with Evan, their conversations clipped and frantic. I overheard her once, whispering about laying low until the storm passed. I smiled to myself, knowing no shelter would hold. Evan's eviction was finalized. He was crashing at a friend's place, his smug facade cracking. I kept the pressure on, sending an anonymous tip to a local art blog about his creative theft. The story spread, and his name became poison in the industry. Clara's firm, spooked by the bad press, suspended her pending the investigation. She told me it was a temporary leave, but her voice trembled. I played the supportive husband, cooking her favorite pasta, suggesting she take time to relax. "You've been through so much," I said, my words a velvet blade. Behind the scenes, I contacted a divorce lawyer, quietly preparing. I also reached out to Evan's landlord, posing as a concerned neighbor, hinting at property damage in the loft. The landlord filed a claim, further burying Evan in debt. Clara started withdrawing, her laughter gone, her phone no longer buzzing with Evan's texts. I knew they were planning something, a last-ditch escape perhaps, but I was always a step ahead. I installed a keylogger on her laptop, capturing every word she typed. Her searches were telling, cheap apartments, jobs in another state. I let her dream, knowing I'd crush it. My revenge was a symphony, each note precise, building to a crescendo she couldn't imagine. By summer, Clara and Evan were cornered. Her suspension became a termination. The firm cited breach of trust. She broke the news over breakfast, her hands shaking as she stirred her coffee. "I'll find something else," she said, but her optimism was hollow. I hugged her, murmuring reassurances, while my mind raced with the next phase. Evan was a ghost now, his online presence silent, his friends distancing themselves. I learned through the keylogger that he'd borrowed money from Clara, draining her savings. My savings, really, since I'd always been the breadwinner. The betrayal stung anew, but it fueled me. I decided to expose them publicly, but not yet. First, I'd let them think they had a way out. Clara started job hunting, but I'd already contacted recruiters in our area, posing as a concerned colleague, hinting at her unreliability. Her applications went nowhere. Meanwhile, I orchestrated a trap. I created a fake job listing for a graphic designer in a nearby city, tailored to Clara's skills. The company was a shell I set up, with a polished website and a burner phone. Clara applied, desperate, and I arranged an interview, knowing she'd tell Evan. The keylogger confirmed it. They planned to relocate together, using the job as their lifeline. I scheduled the interview at a sleek office I'd rented for the day, complete with a hired actor posing as HR. Clara arrived, hopeful, unaware I was watching from a coffee shop across the street. The HR rep grilled her, then promised a follow-up. She left beaming, texting Evan about their new start. I savored the moment, knowing I'd yank it away. My revenge was no longer just about destruction. It was about control, about making them dance to my tune before the curtain fell. Clara's excitement about the fake job was palpable. She started packing, telling me she needed a fresh start and might take a solo trip to clear her head. I nodded, feigning sadness, while tracking her plans through the keylogger. She and Evan were renting a cheap apartment in the new city, pooling their dwindling funds. I let them believe it, feeding their hope like kindling for a fire I'd soon ignite. The company sent Clara a detailed offer letter, outlining a generous salary and benefits. She cried when she read it, thinking I was asleep. I watched her silhouette in the dark, my heart a stone. Evan, meanwhile, was scrambling to salvage his career, but my earlier leaks had done their work. Galleries blacklisted him, and his debts mounted. I sent another anonymous tip, this time to a creditor, ensuring they'd hound him relentlessly. Clara's termination had hit the local news. A small article, but enough to taint her name. I amplified it, paying a freelancer to write a blog post about ethical failures in her firm, naming her explicitly. The post spread on X, and old colleagues stopped returning her calls. Still, she clung to the fake job, texting Evan about furniture and new curtains. I arranged a second interview, this time requesting Evan join her to discuss a potential photography contract. They arrived together, their hands brushing, oblivious to the cameras I'd hidden in the office. The footage was insurance, a weapon for later. The HR rep promised a contract within days, and they left laughing, dreaming of a future I'd never allow. I was almost ready to spring the trap, but first, I'd let them taste their fantasy a little longer. The day of the contract signing was my masterpiece. Clara and Evan drove to the office, their car packed with boxes for their new life. I'd arranged everything. The office was empty, the website down, the phone number disconnected. A single note waited on the desk. Position canceled due to unforeseen circumstances. Clara called the burner phone, but it was dead. I watched from my car, parked discreetly, as her face crumpled. Evan cursed, kicking a chair, while Clara sank to the floor, sobbing. They argued, their voices carrying. Evan blamed her for dragging him into this. She accused him of using her. I recorded it all, my camera steady. Back home, I uploaded the footage to a private server, then sent it anonymously to Clara's former colleagues, her family, and Evan's remaining contacts. The video spread like wildfire on X, captioned, "The Cost of Betrayal." Within hours, Clara's sister texted her, furious, and Evan's last friend cut ties. I waited until Clara returned, her eyes red, her suitcase untouched. "The job fell through," she whispered. I hugged her, my voice gentle. "We'll get through this." But that night, I filed for divorce, citing infidelity, and sent her the papers with a link to the video. She watched it in our living room, her gasps audible. "Mark, how could you?" she choked. I looked at her, my face calm. "You chose this." I left her there, the kids at my parents' house, and checked into a hotel. My revenge was complete. Her career, her lover, her reputation, all ash. But as I lay in the dark, the victory felt hollow. A bridge built to nowhere, and I wondered what I'd lost in the fire. The days following the divorce filing were a blur of silence and wreckage. Clara moved out, renting a cramped apartment on the edge of Maplewood. She tried calling, leaving voicemails that ranged from tearful apologies to bitter accusations. I didn't answer. The kids, confused and hurt, stayed with my parents while I sorted out custody. Emma asked why Mommy was gone. I told her we needed time apart, my voice steady but my chest hollow. The video I'd leaked had done its work. Clara's name was toxic in our social circles. Her friends ghosting her, her family divided. Evan was worse off, couch surfing and dodging creditors, his charm useless now. I tracked their misery through X posts and mutual acquaintances. But the satisfaction I'd expected was fleeting. My house felt like a museum, every corner holding echoes of a life I'd dismantled. At work, my bridge project neared completion, a symbol of stability I no longer felt. Colleagues noticed my distraction, but I brushed it off. I hired a therapist, Dr. Ellis, to help me process the rage and grief, but our sessions only scratched the surface. I'd won, hadn't I? Clara and Evan were ruined, their dreams ash. Yet, late at night, I'd replay Clara's laugh from years ago, before Evan, before the lies. I started rebuilding my routine, cooking for the kids, attending Liam's games, helping Emma with math. But the revenge lingered like a stain. I'd exposed Clara's betrayal, but at what cost? My lawyer pushed for full custody, citing her instability, and I agreed, though it felt like another blow to her. Clara sent a letter, begging to see the kids, promising to change. I read it, then filed it away. My plan wasn't over. There was one final piece. a way to ensure she'd never forget the consequences of her choices. I discovered Clara was trying to rebuild. She'd landed a freelance gig, designing logos for a small startup. It was a flicker of hope, a chance to claw back some dignity. I couldn't allow it, not out of spite, but because my revenge demanded permanence. I contacted the startup anonymously, posing as a former client, and shared the blog post about her ethical failures. I included screenshots of her emails to Evan, carefully edited to suggest ongoing deceit. The startup dropped her within days, citing reputational concerns. Clara's ex-profile, once vibrant with her art, went silent. I learned through a mutual friend that she'd started therapy, grappling with shame and loss. Evan, meanwhile, had left town, chased by debts and disgrace. I tracked him to a dingy bar in a neighboring state, where he was bartending under a fake name. I sent his creditor a tip about his whereabouts, ensuring he'd stay on the run. Back home, I focused on the kids, but their questions about Clara grew sharper. "Why can't we see Mom?" Liam asked, his eyes accusing. I deflected, but guilt gnawed at me. My therapist warned me about the toll of vengeance, how it could consume more than it restored. I ignored her, diving into my final act. I created a fake scholarship in Clara's name, aimed at young designers, but with a twist. The application required an essay about overcoming personal failure. I publicized it through her old firm and local art groups, ensuring she'd see it. The scholarship was real, funded by my savings, but its purpose was cruel, a public reminder of her downfall dressed as opportunity. When Clara applied, I'd reject her, sealing her defeat. It was my last lever, a way to keep her broken. The scholarship ploy worked too well. Clara applied, her essay raw and confessional, detailing her mistakes and her desire to rebuild for the kids. I read it in my office, the words cutting deeper than I'd expected. She wrote about loving me, about losing herself in Evan's flattery, about the guilt that now defined her. For the first time, I saw her not as the traitor but as a person flawed like me. I rejected her application as planned, but the act felt empty. The scholarship went to another designer, and Clara's name faded from the art scene again. I expected triumph, but instead, regret crept in. The kids were struggling, Emma withdrew, Liam acted out at school. My parents urged me to let Clara see them, arguing she was still their mother. I resisted, but their words echoed Dr. Ellis's warnings about vengeance's cost. I started noticing my own isolation. No friends called, no colleagues lingered after meetings. My revenge had burned bridges I hadn't seen. One night, I found an old photo of Clara and me, laughing at a beach, the kids tiny and clinging to us. I stared at it until dawn, wrestling with a truth I'd buried. I'd destroyed her, but I'd also shattered parts of myself. I called Dr. Ellis, admitting I was unraveling. She suggested I confront Clara, not for her sake, but for mine. I wasn't ready, but the idea took root. Meanwhile, I learned Clara had taken a job as a cashier, a far cry from her design career. The image of her scanning groceries, humbled and alone, should have felt like victory. Instead, it was a mirror reflecting my own cruelty. I began to question if my final act had been too far, if I'd become the architect of my own ruin. The kids' pain forced me to act. I agreed to supervised visits with Clara, arranging them through my lawyer. The first meeting was at a park, Emma and Liam running to her, their hugs desperate. Clara's eyes met mine, red-rimmed but grateful. I nodded, then left, my throat tight. Seeing her with them stirred memories of our better days, before the lies, before my vengeance. I'd thought breaking her would free me, but it only tethered me to the past. At work, my bridge was unveiled, a sleek marvel of engineering, but the applause felt distant. My focus was slipping. Colleagues whispered about my errors. My boss hinted at a break. Dr. Ellis pushed me to face Clara directly, to speak my truth. I resisted, but the weight of my actions was crushing. I tracked Clara's life through small updates. Her cashier job was stable. She was painting again, small canvases for herself. She'd written me another letter, hand-delivered, asking for forgiveness, not for her, but for the kids. I broke us, she wrote. But don't let my mistakes break them. I read it 10 times, each pass softening my resolve. Evan was gone. Last seen in a different state, his life a cautionary tale on X. I'd won utterly, but the victory was a cage. I started journaling, at Dr. Ellis's suggestion, pouring out the rage, the love, the loss. It helped, but not enough. I decided to meet Clara, not to forgive, but to understand. I chose a neutral cafe, setting a date through her sister. The night before, I dreamed of our wedding, Clara's smile radiant, and woke with tears. My revenge had been precise, a structural collapse I'd engineered, but it had buried me too. I needed to know if there was a way out, for the kids, for myself. The cafe was quiet, sunlight filtering through dusty blinds. Clara sat across from me, her hands folded, her face older than I remembered. I'd rehearsed my words, but they dissolved when she spoke first. "I'm sorry, Mark, for everything." Her voice was steady, stripped of excuses. I nodded, unsure how to begin. I told her about the pain, the betrayal, the years I'd trusted her. She listened, tears falling, but didn't interrupt. Then she spoke, about her loneliness, her insecurity, how Evan's attention filled a void I hadn't seen. "It wasn't you," she said. "It was me." I wanted to hate her, but the anger was dull now, worn out by months of vengeance. I admitted my part. Not the specifics of my revenge, but the bitterness that had consumed me. "I wanted you to hurt," I said. "I think I hurt myself more." She nodded, understanding more than I'd expected. We talked for hours, not reconciling, but excavating the ruins of our marriage. I saw her clearly. Not the villain I'd cast, but a woman who'd faltered like I had. We agreed on co-parenting, prioritizing the kids. Emma and Liam needed us, not as a couple, but as parents who could coexist. Leaving the cafe, I felt lighter, not absolved, but unburdened. My revenge had been a fire, consuming everything, but in its ashes, I found clarity. I'd never trust Clara again, but I didn't need to destroy her to move forward. At home, I burned her letters, not out of anger, but to let go. The kids came back, their laughter filling the house, and for the first time in months, I slept without dreaming of collapse. My bridge stood strong, and maybe, just maybe, I could build something new from the wreckage.